Okay, happy Friday, everybody. For our newest episode, we have Mario Castellon, our finance and tax strategist, on the podcast. And Mario, it was really great to meet you at the mastermind that Ed put together.
No,
You seem like someone with a vast array of experience and knowledge. So we're grateful to have you on the podcast.
thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with both of you.
And by the way, that's probably the biggest understatement of this week, at least, because this man has probably forgotten more than we all know. And I've been in the game 36 years.
I wish,
So
but
there's your blaring endorsement. So take notes, everybody who's watching this.
thank you.
Wow. So you guys have known each other for that long, huh?
Not quite 36 years, but we've known each other north of 10.
Yeah, no, I think we first met on a couple of the sale. I think it was a sale of a property or refinancing, but we've connected over the years on various projects.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's now great to reconnect with you, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I really enjoyed the get together with the masterminds.
That was so good, right? We're going to keep those rolling. Yeah, everything's relationships, as you know.
Yeah, a lot of different. It was good to be together with a group of various professionals in different areas. And as far as I can tell, we're going to expand the group. But it's that interaction and community that you develop that really contributes to all of us, and helps us help others as well.
Yeah, well said, because, especially these days, after COVID, not that it's gone, but post the major part of it, I think now more than ever, it's important to really revive and water our networks.
Yeah.
Because they provide such a huge value add to all those that we have the privilege of serving as self-employed professionals.
Yeah. And it's so great to be able to have folks with different skill sets, right? Just so they see things differently, right? A lending guy. And by the way, Ed, I've been thinking about you a lot on late at night. Purposely said that. I just wanted to throw that in there.
In a good way, Nima.
In a good way. Because
when I'm doing a platonic way, by the way, let's be clear.
That's a large statement.
As a guy who's on the real estate side, Ed and I, we hit it off from the moment we first chatted, right? And we got along very well. And I have a lot of respect for Ed. I mean, he has a lot. It's weird because I look at him almost like an uncle figure. Yet I also look at him like an older brother as well, because he still has that personality of like, he's like, that we're almost like in the same generation. Yet the amount of experience that he has over me, I consider him like an uncle, so it's like this back and forth that I have with Ed. But the reason why I think about him at night is because, I'm doing a lot of these financial calculating worksheets because I'm working on my
CCIM.
That's right. So the CCIM financial calculator, and I'm sure Mario, you know about a lot of this as well. I've been thinking about Ed. I'm like, man, Ed probably knows how to do these types of things in his sleep.
I actually was doing it in my sleep last night.
Yeah. All of a sudden you're just like IRR, net present value. Just things.
Internal rate of return, by the way.
Internal rate of return, yeah. So it's those types of things, but it goes back to what I said, why I love these masterminds, because we all have a different way of thinking,
Yeah.
And Anna approaches it from an HR perspective. Maybe she's, herding the sheep, just to keep it real. Mario, you're a numbers guy. Ed's very similar to a numbers guy. I kind of look at it more like trends with housing trends. And I feel like when we all get together, we can just see things from a different perspective. And for me, I love being around people from different industries. If I want to know how I can improve my real estate business, personally speaking, I prefer to not be around that many realtors. I prefer to be around people outside of my space because I can see how they connect with their clients, and I can get a way of how I can incorporate that back into real estate. Yeah. That's why I love chatting with you guys.
Yeah. I spend a lot of time, quite frankly, is consulting, but it's a different approach, and I think it's much more similar to what you and Ed do as well, and that is I get to know my client both on a personal and a business basis, and from that understanding, and there's a lot of things that come into play, risk tolerance, sophistication, how they want to increase their wealth, manage their tax liabilities and so forth. But it has a lot to do with connecting. And I think that's in most of the people I talk to, that's what they usually call out as something that differentiates me from other CPAs, because we've all taken the same exam, just like, in any profession, you take the exam, right? And you pass it. So technically you're competent. What usually is distinguishing is how you communicate, what is your soft skill? And in my interaction, I spend a lot of time. In fact, the first meetings, typically there's no notebook, there's no nothing. It's just chatting. Tell me about yourself. What are your plans? If you're not married, you plan to get married. If you're married, you plan to have kids. Have a house. You plan to buy a house. An investment, whatever. And from that, big picture, so to speak, view, holistic of the individual, then you start to get an idea of, what type of financial planning and tax planning actually makes sense for them. And as you were saying, Nima, I think that's what distinguishes us as professionals, is really communicating, talking, understanding, and then bringing our collective knowledge and experience to that individual, and really getting something that works for them, rather than some sort of cookie cutter approach, but something that, that's really relevant and personal for that individual.
Yeah. Well said. And how long have you been doing this? Like how long, like what did you start off by originally doing something different and segue into finances, taxes? How did that work out?
Quite frankly, I have done everything under the sun. I was a farmer at one time, raising cattle, row crops, vegetables. Then I went into, what was it? Had a trucking company for a while, hauling produce and so forth back and forth from the valley to San Jose, where I'm at now. Then I started way back. I started out with a company installing local area networks using an old obsolete program called Lantastic, and so on and so on. And then I eventually went back to college and got my degrees, passed the CPA exam, well into my 30s by then, and then decided to actually pursue finance and tax, career. So I've been at this for, I'd say, 20 years, and started out, basically in the Big Four, Deloitte, and then progressed through industry and been the head of global tax departments for many years, and then decided to just open up my own shop, which been about four years now. And so it's been a progression. A lot of it driven by boredom, quite frankly, just curious, wanted to learn something different.
Yeah. And did you grow up in the Central Valley?
Yeah, Fresno. Actually born in the big town of Fowler. And,
Okay.
Wow.
that's
Okay,
right. I had a ranch out in the middle of nowhere. It was like 30-40 miles outside of Fresno. And then, eventually I went to the big city, to Fresno, and I actually never went back to the ranch. So once I found there was a burger shack, around the corner, it's like, wow, man, I'm never going back to the country again. Seriously,
Yeah.
where I had my ranch, the closest anything was probably about 10 miles away, 10 or 15
Wow.
miles away, so when I went to the city, it was a completely different, transformation of just lifestyle and everything else. So
Yeah.
I eventually just decided to move from Fresno to the Bay Area, mainly because I wanted to work in the high tech and biotech arena. And so that took me from Fresno to, at that time, San Jose. So I've been here in the Bay Area, for 20-25 years, and it was a good move. It's been quite a journey.
I love how your background, though, Mario, if you think about it, a lot of things make sense with the way even you talk, because of the fact that you have a non-financial background as well. Personally, I think that really makes a big difference in how you build rapport and the things that you focus on, which is quality of life for clients, as opposed to just doing numbers.
Yeah.
Because what I've seen a lot of financial professionals, they're very left brain, but the right brain is completely dormant.
Yeah.
And in this case, you're operating right from that corpus callosum right in the middle, and you're extracting from both sides. I really love that approach. And the other lesson here is that it's not how you start that matters, it's how you finish. And
Yeah, yeah, it really is, and I've
Awesome.
never given up on education or anything else.
I love it.
Kept progressing, and then that's how I evolved into my professional style, and that's why I like working with a variety of professionals, because when I speak to a client, to give you an example, working with a client that inherited $4.5 million, right? So what does she need? She needs financial advisor. She needs an attorney. She needs a loan officer, a loan broker. She needs a real estate agent. She's got all these different, areas of need. And with the community around me, I can bring all that together, and we collectively can, help someone like that. So yeah, it's just different. It's just a different approach, Ed. And I think that is the future for any professional. I think that's the future of really building out a practice.
Yeah. And what's the difference between an accountant and a CPA, Mario?
Good question. A CPA, of course, we've taken an exam, so on and so forth. And it gives you a technical, marker, so to speak, benchmark, so to speak, that we all have to hit. Once you get past that, you tend to go in one of two directions. A technocrat knows you're very good at technical knowledge, technical execution, so on and so forth. Or you become a consultant, I would say. And in the consultant role, you tend to be more of a generalist problem solver. What most CPAs aspire to be are problem solvers, taking various disciplines of risk, tax, finance, domestic, international, macro and micro economic factors. An accountant tends to be more someone who is process driven, running a set of books, balancing out a balance sheet, things of that nature. So it depends what you're looking for as a service.
Oh, okay, I see.
Then you have the enrolled agent, correct? The enrolled
Pardon?
agencies, and then you have the enrolled agent.
Oh, yeah.
This is more on the tax preparation. Would that be safe to say?
Yeah, I've actually steered a lot of clients to enrolled agents. An enrolled agent, quite frankly, if a return does not require, if your tax profile requires, basically compliance type of complexity, enrolled agents actually are excellent at that. They have a very good relationship typically with the IRS. They know how to communicate with tax agencies, and they're very knowledgeable in the compliance aspect of taxation. They also tend to be a lot less expensive than we are. A CPA tends to be more conceptual, theoretical, and consultative. So it depends what you're looking for.
Interesting. Okay. I'm assuming the CPA at the end of the name is going to help you get your foot in the door, like you said, with that benchmark, like accreditation.
Yeah.
People know, like, okay, I'm a CPA, so it just kind of stands out.
Yeah, it's a horrible test. It took me 4 days to get through it, and I truly memorized just volumes and volume.
Wow.
Seriously, it was horrible. They took me into us and I don't know, hundreds of others into this huge warehouse, lined us up, started the clock, and you would just grind away there for hours. Come back the next day, grind away again. Anyway, when I passed it, I thought I was a god. And I thought, oh my man, I know it all. I'm ready to go. So I went into public accounting, pretty cocky. And boy, they mopped the floor with me, because your technical knowledge is totally different than actual practice. It took years for me to actually gain enough confidence to really, I would say, embrace both the knowledge and the consultative aspect of what it was to be a CPA. So it's the test is one thing, actually practicing, totally different animal.
Like most things in life, in most professions, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
remember when I took my securities licenses,
There you go.
those were difficult, not
Yeah.
quite as difficult as yours, of course, Mario, but I remember then the actual practice of it was like a different world. Like,
Yeah,
wow,
it's
none
like,
of this is in the book.
yeah, it's like you got to jump through the hoops to play the game, so to speak. You know what I mean? But once you're in the game, you know, it's like, you know, the analogy of basketball. You know, you maybe know how to dribble and shoot from the free throw line, but when you actually have somebody who's trying to take the ball away from you, a whole different story.
Yeah, that's true. So what would you say are your areas of expertise that you really love to do? And then do you have any verticals as far as you did mention, you know, the tech community, but are there like attorneys, you like private medical groups? Tell us kind of what verticals and then what specialties you like to focus on.
Kind of give a nebulous answer, Ed, because what I enjoy what I do, and I have no intentions of retiring because I really like what I do. And the reason I like what I do is that what I truly like doing is helping people. And I know this sounds cliche-ish, but I like helping people solve their problems. It just happens to be that the CPA designation, you know, so on and so forth, is what I use, you know, for that, you know, for that platform. I could have been a priest, could have been an engineer, could have been whatever, you know, but that's what drives me. So I often get asked the question, who's your ideal client? And I don't have one. I probably should. I'd probably make more money if I did, but I don't. On one extreme, I have people that are broke with horrible tax problems, and I do it as a service to the community. I wish I could do more, but I basically help people get out of their tax mess, even though they don't have any money to pay me. On the other hand, I have very wealthy, you know, corporations and individuals that I help solve, you know, various complex tax problems and build out, you know, in some cases, international tax structures. So, but the core of the core, I would say, if you say that, ask me what is my core capability, it is problem solving. And it just depends on what your specific problems are. And an individual versus a company, very different animal, very different, you know, fact patterns, but the ability to solve problems and distill that into something that the client appreciates, understands, and is of benefit to them is really what distinguishes me.
Nice. That's very admirable. It's like giving back, like you do some pro bono work.
Well, you know, as a CPA, we take an oath, just like doctors do. Like the doctors take a Hippocratic oath. We actually take an oath to serve the public. We are supposed to be, and I didn't see this in practice. I have never seen anybody actually practice this, but we were recited it. I remember clearly that we would be independent. We would not be in debt. We would never make a decision based on money or duress or trying to retain a client, period. That's what we're supposed to be. And I again, being cliches, guys, but that is what drives me. So, and I think that's why a lot of people that run across me is, you're really a CPA?
Yeah. I just heard you
Very
throw awesome
holistic
parties.
What's that?
Yeah. Who also loves parties.
Oh yeah, I throw some
Yeah.
good parties, man. Well, Ed was there. I mean, I don't know what he
Well,
thought.
you know, Mario is the CPA with swag, man. I mean, because he does it holistically. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think you and I can both relate to that. You know, we're the same way. We're cut out of the same cloth.
Yeah.
It's really about full servitude, right?
Yeah.
And the client.
Well, I noticed. Oh,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Mario. I was gonna say I just noticed that the way when Ed says swag, I just noticed the way you were dressed when you came. I'm like, man, this guy's something big. You're dressed so well.
You know, in the good old days, it used to be suit and tie, man, but gave that up. But I still wear a sport coat now and then, you know.
Pull it off well, that's for sure, man.
Yeah.
It makes me want to step my game up. So with these
You know,
millennials these days dressing
it's your
down.
style, man. It's whatever style works for you and you feel good about. That's what I strive for, you know. And I don't. As you get to know me, you'll find that I tend to march to my own beat, you know, march to my own drum beat. I don't mean to offend anyone in any way or come across condescending or conceited or whatever, but I do think you have to find what works for you and what you feel good about.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty about age. You come to those crossroads where you realize that, you know what, I might as well be me because everybody else is taken.
Yeah.
You're right, Ed. I hear you, man. That's exactly right. Yeah. When I first started out this, it was suit and tie, headshot. Just I looked like every other CPA. Seriously.
Mhm.
And once I realized that just wasn't me, for one, you know, I dressed down, got a dog, and it's been great. It's completely changed, you know, the tone, character, and texture of my firm.
Dress down and get a dog, you said, huh?
Yeah, that's what I did.
Well, I
Well, then it
wonder.
becomes really about what you know, right? As opposed to how you dress. And
It is.
isn't that the way it has to be, really? It's really about your brain trust. So how good are you at what you do, as
Yeah.
opposed to how fashionable are you, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to play in the CPA world, if you want to play the conservative, I look like everybody else, you know, you do the suit, tie, and headshot, you know.
Yeah.
But that's not me, for one thing. I never did adopt it. So it, you know, that's why I changed the look. And my culture, the culture of my firm, what we put out there, so to speak, in social media, as well as the client base. Some of it's kind of campy. You know, I have one social media manager and assistant, and it's not polished. A lot of the stuff I do really isn't polished. But it has a technically sound message, and it's consistent.
And it's more authentic.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, I love that. I feel like the older I get, comes more responsibilities, right? Then you got kids, you got a wife, and then you eventually get a house. And then you're like, man, you know who I really wish I had as a good friend? A CPA. Because I got to tell you, there's one CPA that comes in, you know, I teach and train MMA. It's really close to my heart. It helps me a lot mentally and physically. And there's one guy that comes in, and I have a boatload of questions for him. In fact, I write him down on my phone. And like, when I see him, I'm going to ask him this question. Now I have my own CPA, but you know, they're just a little bit more challenging to get a hold of. And with him, I can always chat like off the record. I'm like, hey man, if I'm looking to do this, like, what do you think about that? You know, it's like go to my CPA and let him know, that type of thing. And so that's what he serves. And there's just it becomes so important, I feel like, right? Especially if you're 1099.
Yeah.
Right. And then it just becomes so much more. And every single year, I feel like I'm leaving so much money on the table, and that the CPAs, I mean, you can find one that's, as they say, you get what you pay for, right? You can pay them $100 a month, and then there's some that you got to pay, I don't know, let's say $500, $600 a month. But the amount that you can net and save, that's really what the most important value is, right? How much they're going to save you. And, you know, getting somebody that's super
ROI.
right? ROI, has the right credentials, can really help. I mean, like, when my son was born, I opened up a 528, and then, you know, I was a little later to the game with the SEP IRAs, and I've started, you know, to do that, and then W2 yourself and put that in there, you know, as a tax haven. And so, you know, like, and then I'm starting to think to myself, why, can you please remind me why I was learning what the heck an isosceles triangle was in geometry when I was in 10th grade? Why was I not learning this?
Yeah.
I was learning what's the area under the curve when I was doing college calculus. Like, you know, like what a waste of time in hindsight, when I could have been learning so many things that could have set up my future.
No, I hear you. I mean, like I said, I took the CPA exam. We all took our licenses, but did that really set us up for the future? And not the test in itself. So it you know, it's a learning experience. But you got to jump to the hoops. That's all I can tell you. Know, even college and all that. Anyway, you got to jump to the hoops. Part of our culture.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But then you start thinking ROI. Like, so what I went to school for was molecular and cell biology. I went to school across the bay. I went to Cal.
Hmm.
And I use very limited of that knowledge these days. I mean, but that was just obviously, my personal choice of once upon a time thinking that I was going to go towards the medicine route. And then I took sales and my science background and, thought I would be
Mhm.
decent in pharmaceutical sales. But there was some interesting things in that industry that didn't really vibe with me that well. So I'm like, you know what, maybe renewing my real estate license and working with my dad would have been a better route, and that's what I ended up doing. So a lot of that, right? But it's still, I feel like it builds character even when you have to study. Like if you have some of those studying techniques from way back when, right? If it ain't your first rodeo, you can just kind of manage your schedule better. And I guess in hindsight, those are a lot of the things that you also learn in college, right? In our
Yeah.
studies.
Yeah, yeah, you do. I hear you. I hear you.
So that was some more of like the tax prep stuff that we spoke about. Now, what do you how when the financial planning? I know some folks that have reached out to me before, and over time you start, how do I say this politely? You start thinking like who's kind of one of those, kind of those get rich quick, like they jump in it super fast to make some money, and then there's ones that are really in it, invested in the long term. Now, when I say that, what I mean is I've been approached by a few different folks from a company called, it starts with WF. And they essentially reach out to you and they'll say, hey, do you want to save money on your taxes? That's always the selling point. I'm like, and of course, because I'm going to say no, I don't want to save any money on my taxes. I want to pay the most amount possible. But they start talking about life insurance and putting some money away for that. Ed and I have been on a few of those calls together.
Mhm.
So with you though, Mario, as a guy who's like knows it from A to Z, opposed to someone who's just pushing life insurance, how does your background like differ from something like that, from the financial part?
Um, I would say it's probably the approach more than anything else. As I was saying earlier, I get a holistic view of a client
Mhm.
and how large is their estate, what's their risk tolerance, how old they are, that type of thing. And it depends on the size of the estate, age, and so forth as to where I go. But typically, if it is someone who is just starting out, have a good, relatively good income, so on and so forth, that's one profile as versus someone who's further on down the line. But in any case, I look to determine what is their financial plan, and that can be formal or informal.
Mhm.
If it's a large enough estate, you get an attorney, financial planner, CPA, and the client tells us what is their goal in life. Where do they want to be 20 years from now? Where do they want to be 30 years from now? Okay. And once you have that, then you start layering in what makes sense. It may be an annuity. Okay. It may be increasing their retirement into a 401k, a SEP if they're independent, whatever the case may be. It may be readjusting or balancing their investment portfolio. It's, for instance, the equity investments. Early on you want growth. Later on down the line, you want more income. So it depends, Nima. It depends on the client's fact pattern, what their goals are, and then from there you determine what is the financial plan, what is the tax strategy, does it make sense to set up a living trust, so on and so forth. The problem I have with, I wouldn't say the problem, but the other approaches that I've seen are myopic, and that is, I've got, and they're great products, don't get me wrong. One of the ones I see a lot nowadays are basically life insurance plans that are tied to the market in one way or another, some sort of index, you know, and it has a floor, and if the market goes up, you pick up more, blah, blah, blah. And it's great for the right fact pattern. But the problem is they try and sell it across the board, you know, to whoever they meet. And, you know, it doesn't always work that way. So I distinguish myself in the sense of really knowing what are the client's objectives, and then matching up their vision of their future with, you know, for instance, if they're looking to buy a house, you know, introduce you and Ed. You know, if they're looking to start a business, introduce them to, you know, I have an attorney I work with to establish, helps them set up small businesses, you know, so, you know, it just depends, you know, on what that person's fact pattern looks like.
There is no one size fits all, is there, Mario?
No, I don't think so. And I think that's what, you know, that's what distinguishes a consultant from a transactional professional.
You are somebody, like the way my view is of someone like yourself, it's like you have this toolbox, and a lot of those people that, you know, so maybe let's say some of those people that I've encountered that maybe have one tool, meaning like one part that they try to push overall, but you have multiple tools in that box, and it depends on what you're going to push, depends on that consultation that you have. Like you said, you have that informal and then you have that formal. You find out what's important to them, what their plans are, how many kids, are they going to get married, right? Houses, investments, and so on and so forth. And then you tailor that retirement or that financial planning based on that. And then with your that vast experience, you got different tools for different situations.
Yeah, no, it may be, you know, and quite again, getting back to what you were saying before, it could be an annuity. Annuity may be exactly what they need. Could be life insurance, just a term life insurance policy. I mean, that's what they need. It really depends.
Yeah.
You know,
And
and
what's
I
nice
think,
is that you bring the tax background though also, Mario, which most financial advisors don't. And that makes you really the financial Swiss Army knife that you are.
yeah, and and what I don't know, I'm very upfront about it. And that's why I say typically work with professionals like yourselves in your fields, work with attorneys, I work with financial planners. You know, I'm not foolish enough to think that I can know and do everything.
Yeah, no, very well said. And I know I sound like a broken record here. I've mentioned it a few times, especially to Ed, but I think that's was a big reason why I decided that I wanted to go more towards the commercial space as well, instead of just residential, because having some friends that were looking to open up businesses and you know, I'm just like, well, you should look on LoopNet, you should look on CoStar, right? And it's like the Zillow of commercial real estate, and you can find someone there. I'm like, man, I'm not in this business to turn away business. So what am I doing wrong here? And it's not really my fault. It's just I feel like I have to improve my credentials so I can help more people. And like someone, I immediately think of Ed and his background in stocks and some of the certifications that he's gotten. I'm sure Ed can answer questions about vesting stocks, RSUs, and liquidating those better than your average lender because of the years of experience that he had in this field prior to going into lending.
Yeah, I mean, Ed and I have talked before, and you know that is the distinguishing factor of Ed is he has a background that's far broader than, you know, just basically someone who specializes in only has lived and breathed, you know, loans or loan.
Quite frankly, it helps us aggregate other professionals that we need to bring into the picture. One of the things that I use with every client, and I'll just share my screen here, if you allow me to here, Nima, real quick.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I want to show you something that I utilize with every client, because part of the value proposition that I give clients is to let them know that instantly when you become my client, you automatically get access to my network. Because there's going to be some areas where I'm not an expert, but I know one, and that means that you also know one. So one of the things that I do here is I literally fill out this form for every single client at a meeting to make sure that they have all these professionals in their toolbox, as you mentioned, Mario. And I think this is so important, but I've incorporated it as part of my process. So there's no happenstance. I don't I don't run into this. It happens every single time with every client because it's important and they need to have a network of professionals because they're not going to be experts at everything.
Wow.
That's really cool. I like the diagram. We actually have a list of financial planners, attorneys, and other friends of the firm. And as we're going through discussions, we send this list out and encourage them, to contact and make a choice. But yeah, I like the diagram. That would be a great way to showcase the various people that various professionals we work with. And what areas they focus. That's a great one, Ed. If you don't mind sharing it with me sometime, I like to pleasurize your work. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Well, then they become like part of Ed's lending family.
Yeah.
With
Yeah, it's actually in your inbox for both of you.
Oh, okay, thanks, Ed. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
and I just think so. What I see happening a lot out there, this is the beauty about having a holistic approach to your business, is that the ones who don't, what ends up happening is that they live in a vacuum in this microcosm where everything just revolves around how they monetize. But then what ends up happening is these people suffer from multiple events of burnout because they're not building professional communities and not being able to help their clients in a lot more ways than just how they monetize, make a living. See, I say make a life, not just make a living.
Yeah.
And part of making a life is aggregating other professionals and creating such a great network where all you clients have to do is plug in because you've done all the vetting. See, like I don't have to worry when I send over a client to Nima. I already know they're going to be well taken care of. I already know. I'm just anticipating the phone call when they call me and go, wow, thank you so much for referring me to Nima. This guy is exactly what you said and then some, right? Same thing with you, Mario, that I can refer to clients where I don't have to worry about it because we built community. We've already vetted each other. We know each other's hearts. Plus, we know that we're each other's advocates unconditionally. And I think that that's lacking tremendously in the world right now. But like Gandhi said, be the change that you expect in the world. So we're doing it, and we're doing it right now, even by just doing this Zoom.
Yeah, our mastermind group, the one I've been working with extensively is Anna, with HR. In fact, we talked just yesterday about 3 or 4 clients. Same thing. It's like I work with her, consistently enough that I know that refer something to her, it's done. I don't have to worry about it. Clients come back and they're like, thanks. And then it works for her too, because then they say, well, we really like what you did, in this task, and we'd like to talk to you more about, your HR services, and then in your community, just continues to grow. The other thing too about all this, that, and I'm sure you and Nima just preaching to the choir here, but all of that turns back into referrals from this extended network. Pretty soon you don't have to market. It just flows back into you, and I find it very peculiar when established professionals are just out there constantly pounding the pavement marketing. It's got to tell you something.
Well, it says a lot. Not only have they probably not been watering their relationships, but they have forgotten that the greatest way to build anything, a business, a life, is by embracing the giver's game. Yeah. Are you giving more than you take on a daily basis? Is my question. Yeah. Secondly, is when people see you out on the streets, are they going towards you, or are they going away from you and faking their debt? Hopefully they didn't see you, or pretending like they didn't. I mean, that's one of the metrics is how many times do I get approached at Safeway, right? I mean, it sounds dumb, but think about this. How approachable are you? Or are you just always selling?
You got a good point. My partner on the Oakland side, Daryl, we walk around Oakland, I don't care where we're at, on the East Bay, and people, hey man, he's like, he's like a magnet. But it's because he's really personable and he's got the gift of gab. I'm not that good, but I hear you, Ed. I've been with him at events as well too. And people that he's met cold, and people gravitate towards him. and then they start out, what do you do? And then it goes from there. But you're right. He has that vibe where people feel like this is a guy that not only would I like, but he's giving something back. He's not just a take, so to speak. You got a really good point there, Ed. You really got a great way of articulating that. I haven't been able to. I understand it, but articulating it, that was really good way of saying it.
I've noticed him do that as well a few times when we've gone places, Ed and I, and he just kind of gets in this thing, and I'm like, all right, this guy's dealing. It's almost like when a pitcher, like, you're Tim Lincecum and you're locked into that Cy Young,
Yeah.
and Ed's just dealing, right? So I just kind of stand back and I just watch him, and I'm like, man, this guy, because I see Ed go into because he goes into these places that he's really passionate about, like he loves cars, so and he loves coffee, so he'll do the coffee and cars thing, and I can just totally imagine Ed just going up and striking up a conversation with people, and I'm like, man, just approaching them and just immediately finding that common.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I mean, I can talk. I feel like I can connect with people, but it's like once they come to me, then that's happened. Maybe I can even work on going and approaching people and starting those conversations, because I seldomly do that. But I've seen you, Ed, man, and you.
Yeah, and I'll tell you
Really
something,
good.
it doesn't come from, I never go into it thinking, well, I'm going to get a deal out of this.
Yeah.
I literally go into it thinking, how can I sow as a giver something into this person's life, whether it's, hey man, can I get you a cup of coffee, or just have a conversation? Because here's the thing, we never know where people are at, because now more than ever, we've elevated suffering in silence to Olympic levels.
Yeah.
People suffer in silence, so you never know where that one hello, that genuine connection right off the bat may be the reason why they call you later, have a more in-depth conversation, because they felt that connection, because you don't know their story. So I always go into it very excited, just to know that I'm going to be able to connect with somebody on a non-transactional basis to see how can I make your life a little bit better, as cheesy as it sounds. So I don't go into it wanting or needing anything, or because I read page 13 of the sales book, it's a great approach. No, not at all.
Yeah.
Right? It's more of, I have a confidence about me wanting to sow seeds into you. And that's why it's so easy for me, because I don't go into it with any expectations of getting anything in return, honestly.
I can totally see that. Yeah, because at a certain point they would find you out, right? Like you come across as that guy who's just there for that specific reason. People have a knack, right? Over time, they can tell when it's genuine or when you're just there to try to, like you said, get a few deals under.
And try to hustle.
Yeah. And they tell other people that,
right,
like it or not, that the perception that they pick up of you is what they tell others, and that's where you basically shoot yourself in the foot, because that vibe that you're sending out and they're telling their friends and family, you're not going to get those connections. It's just not going to happen.
100%. When you do something right, they tell 10. When you do something wrong, they tell 100.
They do. Or if they just, for instance, they meet you and they, that's a really cool guy. He does loans. You should go check him out. Or I met this guy. He just, I would not get near him. Well, it's over. He's not
the commission breath.
Yeah.
Mario, my last question for you.
Yeah.
I noticed that you had a few locations. That tell me a little bit more about that, and just so I can understand a little bit better, in this day and age when folks are minimizing office space, they're going virtual or operating out of a home office or one single office. How does Mario Castellon have 3 different offices around the Bay Area?
Yeah, actually I have 4. San Jose, Oakland, San Francisco, and Santa Cruz. There is a person, a receptionist, so to speak, at each office. The Oakland office is staffed almost all the time, and the San Jose office is staffed most of the time. That's where I'm located, and my partner in Oakland. But they're primarily for meetings with clients that want to meet in person. We have a small portion of clients, I would say only about 5%, that prefer to meet in person. So they need to drop off docs. They need to pick up docs. They want to arrange for a face-to-face meeting. I make the rounds each month, so I'll let my assistants know, and they put out, Mario will be at this office, so on and so forth throughout the month, and people make, will make reservations. But I would say 95% of all communication, meetings, so on and so forth, is all virtual. Web conferencing is what most of it consists of. There is an exception, and that is social. I make it very clear that you want to get together, a cup of coffee, lunch, dinner, drinks, whatever. That, I'm there. If I have, of course, time and so forth. That I do make an effort to be available. But considering, I'm not using it just as something to peddle, but I honestly do believe that we need to limit our carbon footprint. And one of the biggest things that I can do is basically not drive so much. And I started this, quite frankly, before COVID. And I had a lot of trouble basically getting my clients to get on Zoom, get on Google, and communicate virtually. For better, for worse, especially my older clients, when COVID hit, they learned how to use web conferencing because they want to talk to their grandchildren. They want to talk to their brother, their sister, whatever the case may be. And I went along for the ride. It's like, okay, hey, let's do this over, over a web conference. And they were like, oh yeah, I know how to do that, But before COVID, it was like pulling teeth. So it accelerated the process that we had started before COVID. And so the office locations we have are real, and it is brick and mortar, but it really is lightly staffed to accommodate exceptions to what I would consider to be the preferred mode of business communication, and that is virtual.
Oh, nice. Well, I really appreciate that, Mario. I appreciate you making yourself available.
Sure.
If folks want to connect with you, where's the best way to go about that? How can they find you?
I'm really easy to find on the net, for one thing. Just Google in Frank Mario Castellon CPA. Also on LinkedIn, they can find me there as well. Otherwise, phone call, email, texting, it's pretty accessible. But Castellon Professional Services, just Google that on the net, and you'll get a hit for the Bay Area.
Alrighty, that's Castellon, spelled Castellon.
Correct.
Mario, I greatly appreciate you. Ed, as always, my co-host, I greatly appreciate you being available and all your knowledge and your smiling face, amongst the other things.
Thank you much. I really appreciate being here as well too. So
thank you. So here you go, guys. There's his profile.
Oh, okay.
Look him up on LinkedIn. Here's his
go.
contact information. It is right there. There's his phone number. There's his email address. I highly recommend, if you're a business owner or you're a person who has the need for any kind of tax consulting or financial consulting, don't make these decisions by yourself. Yes. One of the greatest ways to build wealth and to save money is first by stepping into humility and knowing that there are professionals for a reason, like Mario. You need to activate them in your life so that you don't have to make decisions that later on are going to be more costly and then you can potentially regret.
Well said, Ed. Well said.
Amen to that.
No.
Yeah. Well, all right, you gentlemen. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Hope you had a productive week, and I will chat with you soon.
Okay. Take care.
All right, you too. Thanks again, Mario. Have a good one, Ed.